Showtime! Welcome to the Rocker Diaries, which used to be Blood, Sweat, and Metal. As many people know, due to the pandemic, I changed the title of the show because we want to know more about the guest that comes on our show. Yes, we do talk about the music, but more importantly, trying to get a bit of an insight of what they do personally and what they do for enjoyment outside of the music. But today, we're talking to one of the finest bands that came out of Australia over the last few years, called Flaming Wrekage, and I'm talking to David. David, welcome to the show.
Hey man, how are you? It's very formal of you to call me Dave.
Yeah, it's a bit of a lag going on, but we still got you, man. We still got you. But anyway, I want to say thanks to Dicey for allowing this to participate, man. And man, what a story Flaming Wreckage got. You guys have been on the up ever since you started, and around 2018, you guys really had a wonderful year. You want to tell the audience what actually occurred, because you guys really did smash it out of the ballpark in 2018.
2018, I think that was when we went to Europe, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure. Yeah, man, that was just a culmination of a lot of tours, a lot of hard work. We just finally got to a point where we were able to, properly get overseas and, just do a real tour, playing every night. It was really fun. And that was kind of the start of the writing process for this new record that we just put out, Cathedral of Bones. Ever since then, we've just been working our asses off on that album, and it's awesome to have that out now. But man, I guess I've never really thought of it like that. But I guess that year was a pretty pivotal year in the evolution of the band. And man, it's all come together now. So it's on the up and up. Feels good.
It is, man, and it's just so amazing that there's so much talent here in Australia, and it's still flourishing. And more importantly, we've got like an underground type of following here in Australia when it comes to metal, and it's just flourishing throughout Australia, because you guys toured with other great Australian bands like the Croptic and King Parrot, just to name a few. I want to ask, when you went over to Indonesia, how was the camaraderie and the response from the crowd? Because I saw on YouTube a while ago, you played in what looks like a gymnasium hall, but I don't know if that was it, in Jensen over in Indonesia. You had people diving off the stage, and that. Was that an all-age gig? Because I did see a lot of younger kids in the crowd, and that. Was that an all-age gig? Or?
Yeah, it was, man. The shows there are insane. Like, the death metal scene in Indonesia is just, you can't even imagine. It's so huge. Pretty much every show was like that. That was the biggest venue we played by far. But even some of the smaller ones are like tiny little venues. It's just like, 60, 70 people just crammed into this tiny little room, and people just love it. As soon as you start playing, they just throw their bodies all over the joint. It was great. It was such a good experience. But yeah, that show in particular, that was probably at the time the biggest show that we'd done, and it was a bit surreal actually, because I just remember getting there and the van just got swamped by all these kids, and we had to just sort of hang out in a little room until we went on, because we couldn't really go out into the crowd and watch the supports or anything, because we just get mobbed. I've never really experienced anything like that before, but the response was insane, man, and just meeting everyone at those shows was a really humbling experience. Everyone's so cool there. And like I said, death metal is just fucking huge in Indonesia. It's crazy.
And even the president over there, he's a metalhead himself.
Yeah. It comes right down.
Yeah. But I want to ask, personally, were you a bit cautious when I watched that video live footage that's on your YouTube channel? Were you a bit cautious when that guy was right next to the microphone, head swirling? Because here in Australia, obviously we're a little bit cautious. Fans don't normally get up on stage and get that close to the microphone. But were you cautious that you were going to knock off the microphone or keep the fold back or anything like that? Because he got pretty close.
Yeah, it was. I don't know, man. It's a bit of a different vibe. Like, it is a pretty. I guess it's a bit of a risk having anyone on the stage, but at that show in particular, there was there's probably 50 people side of stage, and they just kind of, a few of them would get pretty pumped and just run on stage for a little bit, have a bit of a headbang or jump into the crowd, but yeah, it's a bit of a different vibe. It's a bit more all inclusive. There's no security at any of the shows, so it's pretty common for that sort of thing to happen. But we played one of the smaller shows we did there. The first one was in this tiny little space. It was the hottest gig I've ever played in my life. It was like, so, oh man, I just can't even describe how hot it was. But there was no PA. It was just one guitar cab, and the mic was running through that, and that was the gig. And the mic stand there, because I sing and play guitar. It's really annoying when you're playing with a straight mic stand, because the guitar keeps banging on it, and it was one of those, and it was this rusted piece of shit, and like the thread on it was fucked. So like one of the kids of the show just kind of took it upon himself to be my little stage tech for the show. Like every time the mic just started spinning around, he was there to make sure it was back on track for me. So yeah, I think like everyone there just wants to have a good time, and they were so stoked that someone from another country had come to play in their little town. So I didn't really feel like at any of those shows there was going to be any issues with the crowd, man. It was super cool.
Before we get on to the new music and the new tours and that, I want to ask personally, do you miss touring overseas now? Obviously, we've got restrictions now in place, but being on the road overseas, do you miss that now, man?
Oh, for sure, man. That's why we do it. Yeah, like the few times we've gone overseas, it's been a really amazing experience. And just the style of touring, those tours facilitated, like that kind of thing doesn't really happen in Australia. Like a big Australian tour is over several weekends, and you might play 3 nights in a row if you're lucky. But just getting into that routine of playing every single night, like that's what it's all about. And it's a real test of, you've done all the hard work to get to that point. And it's a real test of the band. You're living in each other's pockets the whole time. And but you come back a much tighter band if you do that as well. It's just like after like about 4 shows, you just get into a rhythm and you're just all over it. So yeah, like it's the best thing you can do as a band, because all the bands from back in the day, that's how they used to do it. They used to play just every single night. So
yeah,
I mean, if we could do that in Australia, I would. But unfortunately, there's just not enough towns that you can hit during the middle of the week, unfortunately. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've got a bit of great encouragement from Dave Evans, the original lead singer from ACD. So he said, if there's a will, there's a way. If there's a will for people to go out and perform, there's a way. I want it to go back in the old days where you can just rock up on the back of a truck in an open paddock and can just put on an amplifier and start playing. But with what the world is at the moment, people will complain about noise pollution. I just reckon get stuffed, mate, because if one has music, there's music. So I want bands now to do as much performing as they can, with restrictions provided. If they can go out and
I totally agree, man. And like one of the things that I'm gonna try and do a lot more of over the next year or so is just more regional shows, because I think that's a really important part of touring, and I don't think enough bands really hit those regional spots. Like you've got like King Parrot, like a big exponent of regional touring, and I think if a few more bands really got on board with that kind of thing, like like you hit like little towns like Lismore and like Maryborough and stuff like that. Like people, it's the same principle as like going to like little towns overseas, man. People just appreciate that you're there. So even if it is a Wednesday night and there's nothing else on, so they'll come out, and it's all like you always get some of the best experiences playing those little shows. So I'd really like to, like you said, just do an old school tour where you just start in one place and just for as long as it takes and just hit like 30 towns. I'd love to do that here. Like it's pretty unheard of, but I reckon we could do it.
Yeah. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. No, it's not COVID. For that one. I've been coughing all day because been drinking a lot of fluid water. The temperature's been dropping here in Adelaide, way over here in the east. You guys are muggy as hell. It's still raining and hot and sticky. But
it's been a sticky one.
yeah. But I'd like to talk about the writing process for the brand new album. It took about 2.5 years, give or take. to get this new album out. What direction for you and the band did you take on this album compared to the other albums that you did? Do you have to change anything, any dynamics or direction that you wanted to make on this album?
Like, I don't think we set out to consciously change anything in particular, but it's just a natural evolution of the band, and with more touring and more time together, I think that just naturally evolves into something that is a better product. And one thing on this album that I think really made a big impact early on was we started playing like some of these songs we've had in the vault for almost like two and a half years. So there was a couple that were already in the set list. Like we were just road testing them, and just like playing them live, like hearing it in a different way. That kind of like impacts the writing, I think, in a way as well. And but like the initial version that you would have heard like on those tours 2 years ago is like pretty far from what we actually put out. But it's just you're just playing the song a lot more, and that just puts it. You get a different little like insight into it, I think, if you do that. And also, like, one major difference on this record was the sheer amount of preparation that we did. Like, we did so much pre-production, man. It was just insane. Like, we had Dom Simpson from Darker Half who was doing pre-pro for us, and there was just we'd be around there almost every night doing something, just working on tiny little bits and just really nailing down the songs. And he's a guy that really understands our band. Like, he filled in for us for a little while there. He came to Indo with us, so he knows exactly what we're going for, and it's just good to have that like objective opinion on your music. Like, we trust him. He knows what we're about, but he can give us completely honest feedback. So just that process of really nailing those songs and just playing them a million times, I think that set the foundation for the tracking process. Like, by the time we actually it got to tracking, we were very well prepared. So I guess the biggest difference was just like playing the shit out of it more than we did on previous releases. And I think that really helps with the final product.
Well, that's the way it should be, because many bands, when they started before the new album, they'd put new material in their set list, and it's more like putting those new songs got like training wheels on, and basically after a certain period of time, it starts to gel, it starts to get a bit more power behind it, and then when you lay it down on an album, it's all polished, man. It's all thick and span, and it's brand new. And when you look back at it, when you first played that song, you think, holy shit, look how far that song has come. Maybe it has changed in not writing or anything, but playing. When you first played it to when you actually laid it down on an album, you can kind of see there is a little bit of a change, because it made the song better as you progress along. When you keep playing it and playing it and playing it, it just gets stronger and stronger. I've seen that with so many bands around Australia and overseas. When they put a new single out in the set list, they just put the training wheels on first, and then they'll just let it roll on from there.
Yeah, that's right. And like I said before, like, the version that you record is pretty far from the initial, version that you're going to have in that set list. And you're working on it, each week at rehearsal, and you're just fine tuning it. So yeah, it's just another way to. It's good. Like, it tightens the song up as well. Like, it's just as simple as the more you play it, like, the better it's going to be. So road testing stuff is always a good idea, I think.
Now, for you personally, David, were you always brought up on heavy metal as a kid, or did that grow on you as time progressed?
It definitely grew. Like, my parents listened to lots of Aussie rock. Like, I grew up on like the Angels and Midnight Oil. They were the first two bands that I really gelled with from a very young age. So yeah, there was a lot of that playing in the house all the time, and then I kind of gravitated towards Metallica. That was my first like real love as a band. And then, like, as soon as I heard Metallica, I wanted to pick up a guitar, and then I just became obsessed with that. And it just evolved from there. Like, I was mad into Metallica, and then the heavier stuff kind of came along after that. I just remember, like, I had a mate in high school and he had Foxtel, so, and MTV, like Headbangers Ball. We used to go around there and watch that, and like that was my like first foray into sort of the heavier stuff, like, you know, like Children of Bodom and In Flames and that sort of thing. So yeah, man, it's just a natural evolution, I guess. But yeah, it all starts with Midnight Oil, and I reckon I still love that band so much, and like I do go back to stuff like that even now, to like, from a songwriting perspective. I don't really like to box myself in with just heavy metal. I think that's a pretty naive way to go about your writing. Like, there's so many influences out there you can take from. So yeah, man, like, I go back to my roots very regularly, especially if you're in a bit of writer's block. You just go back to what you know and always get out of it.
Yeah. Well, that, you on Midnight Oil. Well, for me, when I first listened to music was Barry Manilow, then John Farnham, and then it went heavy. So
yeah,
if I go back to my roots as well, but at the same token, when we talk about heavy metal, and this is the funny thing, fans in general, not people in bands, but fans, they usually put bands of the, like, where death metal, thrash, glam metal, hair metal, they put these bands in pigeonholes. And it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing because for me personally, I don't think there's ever such a thing called heavy metal. Basically what it is, it's rock and roll, but played louder and perhaps played a lot faster in some genre or form. That's what, if you want to look at the real core base of heavy metal, it's rhythm and blues. It comes from the blues. And they just put more power chords in it, and they use the whammy bar, they use all that. But my point is, I find it hilarious that fans put bands in pigeonhole. If it's not death metal or if it's not black metal, they won't listen to metal at all. They reckon that's shit and that's great, or that's shit and that's great. You ever say that for yourself? You ever say that for yourself? Because it's getting a bit of beyond a joke now, but I get it.
No, it's just a ridiculous conversation, I think. Like, it's just, you know, one of the defining aspects of metal is that it brings people together. So why are we arguing about something that's not true black metal, or that's not heavy enough to be classified as death metal? I just don't really buy into any of that shit, to be honest. You know, and who cares if you don't like it? That's okay. You don't have to listen to it, man. It's all personal preferences, you know. And it's just like, I guess, like, people always want to like define what your band is very specifically. It's like, oh well, you're kind of like thrash, but then you're kind of death. But you must be melodic death. It's like, I don't really give a shit. It's just heavy music, and if that's what you want to listen to, then cool. But yeah, I totally agree. It's a bit of a tired conversation. I think we can move on past that. Like, yeah, like some of those dudes, I don't know, like thrash guys are like a little bit what's the word? I don't know.
See, I'm a bit like you, David. When I go into my closet, I don't say there's the different colour shirt of black. I'm wearing a hoodie. I'm wearing McCanary Banktown Bulldogs hoodie. Yes, I'm originally from Sydney. I follow the Bulldogs. But when you were growing up, especially in the early adulthood, do you ever laugh at yourself that when you pull out your drawers, all you got is black t-shirt? Because my mother, when she was doing my washing, she couldn't see another colour t-shirt except for black.
Yeah. Well, yeah, make the washing pretty easy, that's for sure. But yeah, you can never have too many band shirts, man.
No. Well, see, I'm like a walking billboard now, wearing all these different band t-shirts. I wear one every single day, and perhaps if I'm too hot, I'll wear about 2 or 3. I just change my shirt and put a new one on. But no, it's great. Yeah, well, it's great because looking back at the career of Flaming Wrekage, I've seen how you guys have progressed. Like, the band started in 2010, give or take, and yes, you played a lot of gigs here in Australia and been overseas, and that. Now that you're back on the road after the pandemic last year. You did get back on the road last year, and whatnot. What did you miss personally when you weren't touring? Was it performing live, or was it just having fun, or both?
Oh, it's a mixture of both for sure. I mean, last year was frustrating for everyone, and we had lots of shows that got cancelled, and it was just like for me personally, the thing that I struggled with most was like just leading up to the album release. It's the most work I've ever had to do for the band, which is a good it's good, and now that it's out, it's all totally worth it. But it's it's all the hard work that you put in behind the scenes that it's worth it when you get to be on stage. And when you can't do that, it can be a bit of a battle. So, we managed to sneak in a few shows last year before everything went to shit, and then we did like one or two of those like sort of seated ones at the end of last year as well. And like I remember like the first show back after the initial lockdown and all that was in Canberra, and we like I was just that week in particular. I remember I was just absolutely flat out just getting album stuff together, and as soon as you step on stage, you're like, this is why we do this. This is why this band exists. You want to be on stage, and it makes like that hour that you get to do that. It makes all the hundreds and hundreds of hours, on your laptop doing emails totally worth it. So that's the thing I miss the most. But also when you're on tour, like it's like you're just with your mates and you're just having a laugh, and it's just the most fun ever. So, and you don't get that kind of like traveling when you're just going away on the weekend with your mates. It's totally different. So just that mode of traveling and just carrying on in different cities all the time, it's great fun, man. It's the best thing ever. So, but we're not too far off. Tour starts tomorrow, so keen for that.
No, well, things are starting to reduce. The restrictions are starting to ease a bit. Oh, matter of fact, here in South Australia, I just got back from Port Lincoln last week. When I got back to Adelaide, the restrictions lifted due to how many people can be in, and also dancing is back on the dance floor, so people can dance on the dance floor. I didn't really like to go to a gig and being able to sit down in a mosh pit. That's not me. I don't want to sit down in a metal gig. I want to stand up and have a beer in one hand and talk to another one, headbang my head. But restrictions have been eased a bit, and that's a great thing too. And I'm starting to see a lot more gigs are starting to flow. Unfortunately, before I went to Port Lincoln, Jason North from Truth Created had to cancel Heavy SA due to those restrictions before they got lifted, because he lost a lot of money.
I think he had too many bands. Like it's hard with those big shows because that cuts into your capacity too much. Like if you're going to do a big show with a lot of bands, it's just there's not much room for punters if it's restricted that much. So but I'm sure he'll be back strong, man. He'll put on New Dead hopefully. I'm not sure this year, but like
and also New Dead got cancelled as well this year again, and hopefully we can get you guys Flaming Wrekage on New Dead because that's one of the gigs. But saying that, you played at Frankie's bar last December. How well was that? Because that was just around the time when the album got released as well. How was that leading into the new year? You guys played a show at the Frankie's bar. How was that, man?
It was great, man. It was before the album came out, though. The album came out last week. The restrictions are still a bit different in New South Wales. Like you can't stand up and have a beer at the moment, so there's no dancing. So tomorrow's show at Crowbar will be fully seated still, which is disappointing, but whatever. Like it's still a gig, and I'm just stoked to be playing. I thought that like the whole sitting down thing would be a bit of a weird experience, and like it was for the first couple of songs, but then after that you just realise that you're on stage smashing it out. So it doesn't really matter. Like I'd rather be playing than not playing. If everyone's seated, then that's all we have to do. That's fine, man.
that's the thing, Dave. This is what I want to bring up, and sorry for cutting you off. When
No,
those
it's okay.
restrictions did get put in place, whether it's in WA, Adelaide, Melbourne, or Sydney or Brisbane, I kind of laughed at it. I said, how are they going to police these restrictions in the venues? Because once the beers start flowing in the live venues, especially at Frankie's or here at the Enigma Bar or over in Perth, once the beers start flowing, those rules go out the window. They don't care. As long as they're in the venue at that particular time, they're just going to let their hair down. And I kind of laughed at them. So how are they going to police it? Because it just, I get it. It is what it is. And yes, there's been some gigs in Perth last year before they went into lockdown where they were having a massive mosh pit of 200 to almost 300 people in the gig. And I'm saying, we can't even get 50 people here in Adelaide at the moment because we were under lock. And then you guys couldn't do it as well. And it was kind of a bit of a joke for me seeing, okay, how are they going to police it? Because like I said, once the beers start flowing and you get into your second song, maybe you're halfway through your first song. People are just going to let their hair down and they're just going to mosh.
Yeah, I think for the most part, like the shows that like I've tried to get out to a lot of shows just to support the venues as much as I can because they've had a tough slog in the last year. They've been on the verge of closing down a lot of them. So and just with those limited capacity, it makes it hard. Like big venues that have like a capacity of like 400 or 500 people with at the peak of social distancing. At times it was only 60 tickets they could have in there. So with that in mind, I think most of the shows that I've been to, I think the majority of people have been very respectful of what has to happen to make the show happen. So
yeah,
and I think that's one thing that has come of this shit show is that people, have a newfound appreciation for the value of music. And if you have to sit down at a metal show, so be it. Like you'd rather see a metal show than not see one. So you just got to respect the venue, respect that it's not their rules. They're just there to enforce them. It's a shit job to have to go around and tell people to sit down, and they know that too. So I think for the most part, everyone's been pretty good, and and it's not too far away that it's going to be right across Australia that everyone can stand up and have a beer and wash. So. Yeah, man.
Exactly.
It is what it is.
And his positive spin on it too. And I just thought about this just before Christmas last year. Those underage kids that loved the band that couldn't get into licensed venues, they should be loving it right now because everything was locked down. Not many places places are starting to open up. They're starting to get to the legal age now. They are going to be the first ones in those doors just celebrating that they can see their favourite band up on stage. Whether they've got to sit down or not, they're going to be there. So that's a positive spin. These young kids that couldn't see the band because of license restrictions and also being underage, they are going to come out in droves. I can see them. Yeah. I truly believe, before we go on to the next question, I truly believe with the lockdown and not many bands touring and whatnot, I really think now, on the positive thing, it's going to be a resurgence of live music here in Australia. Whether it's the metal scene or the rock or punk or whatever, there's definitely going to be a resurgence back in live music once everything starts to fully open up again.
Yeah, 100%. And like it probably still will be a little while before we get too much international touring. So it's a great opportunity to just have a look in your own backyard and like there's been like the caliber of bands that we have in Australia is incredible. And I know I'm biased, but Sydney at the moment is for metal is the best it's ever been. I reckon. Like maybe not ever, but in a long time. Like there's some really really solid bands kicking around at the moment. So yeah, man, just like you don't have to look far to find a great band at the moment, and everyone's starting to get out on tour again. So yeah, you got to get out and support good Australian music because there's shitloads of it.
Yeah. I know Steel Assassins, they just have to reschedule their thing, and also they've got to reduce how many bands they've got to have on the bill as well. And I get it. They've got to make certain rules and regulations for themselves to protect themselves and not to get into what I say shit from the health authorities and whatnot. Because Steel Assassins is one of the great metal gigs that happens yearly since the pandemic. But they're coming back this year. You guys looking forward to that, man? Of course you guys will. That's a stupid question.
As far as I know, we're not playing it, but I usually try and get down to that one because there's always a few good mates that are playing from all over Australia on that show. So yeah, Dave Balfoy puts on a good festival there, man.
Yeah. And you guys got a gig tomorrow night. I want to do a bit of an advertisement for you guys on this show. You got a gig tomorrow night. You're playing at the Crowbar. You're playing at the Crowbar, and then on the 26th of March you're playing as well. You guys must be looking forward to tomorrow night. Friday night in New South Wales. Yeah, plenty of metal to be spread around, man.
Yeah, man, it should be good. It's all sold out, so that's great. Just looking forward to seeing everyone there. It's first show of what will be plenty of shows this year. So yeah, it's been a bit of a pain in the ass, booking this tour, but we're here now, and it's kind of a little bit spread out, but that's okay. We've still got plenty of shows, and hopefully we'll have something for you guys in Adelaide pretty soon as well.
I'll be there, man. As soon as you get to Adelaide, I will be. All right. I want to be fair. I want to be honest with everyone. I have not been to a gig since Alex Cooper last year for certain different reasons. One, most of the places were shut down, and two, when the gigs did start to come back, especially at the Numa Bay and Fowlers, by the time I got a ticket, it was sold out because of the reduce of the crowd size. I still support live music, but I will be going back very shortly because Hidden Intent, they've got a new album out, and they
that came out the day after ours, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
that's sick.
Yeah, good. And that's the good thing about. I mean, I know people say, "Oh, there's a competition." No, I don't think it's a competition. I think it's more flavour. The more bands that bring albums right now, because there's a lot of bands now that got plenty of time up their sleeves. They should be recording new material and a new album, even if it's an EP, a 3 or 4 song EP. People got time in their hands, and the more that we get more stuff out, the better. Even King Parrot last year released something, and that was great.
Yeah, they're always doing stuff, those guys. So yeah, man, Hidden Intent, we play with those dudes shitloads. So yeah, like it's just friendly competition. It's great to have a good network of fellow bands around the country that you can just jump on shows with whenever you go to each other's towns. That's a really good thing about it. Like, we come in Adelaide, let's play a couple of shows together, and you just develop this real broad network of bands that you can just hit up every time. And yeah, it's great, man. I love that about touring as well.
Now, as you mentioned before in the show, you mentioned about Midnight Oil. As you know, Michael Kadidji passed away from Mushroom Records and also Frontier Touring. I want to say, man, how much of a black hole will be left behind now that he's passed away, because he's done so much for Australian talent here in Australia. And not only that, he brought a lot of international acts under his touring program as well.
Yeah, man, it's a big loss for sure. He's just such a massive figure in the Australian music industry. And yeah, I think just over the course of the next year, there'll be rumblings overseas to get a few acts back over to Australia. So I'm sure it'll be, it's devastating that he won't be here to see that, all the hard work that he's done to get Frontier and Mushroom to where they are now. It's a huge loss, man.
Yeah. And another question, do you think Download Festival here in Australia will be back next year? This is the second time that we won't have Download due to the pandemic, but do you think Download will be back next year?
Yeah, I think so, man. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's like the guys that run that, like it's a well-oiled machine, and it's I went to both of the ones they put on the last couple of years, and it's just so good. Such a great festival, and it's great because there's like plenty of Aussie bands on there as well. It would have been cool to just and but I think in the meantime there'll probably just be a couple of cool Aussie festivals, maybe not like as big as that that will spring up. Just like festivals, all over the country. They're great for the like just to put on the touring circuit. But if you can get yourself on download, that's pretty much the pinnacle. So yeah, I have no doubt that once everything's back to normal, that'll be pretty high on the list for promoters.
Yeah, well, talking about download, before that came around, we know what the downfall was. Soundwave happened and all that, and many people thought we were never going to get a festival in Australia ever again. I was one of them. I said if it was ever going to be a festival, they'll have to do like a weekend thing and only be in one state. Well, lo and behold, 4 months later, we get the report that Download were playing in Melbourne, and I'm saying, okay, we've got a promoter here that wants to pull it through. I went to the first two downloads in Melbourne. Didn't go to the last one in 2020 because I knew something was going to happen. I started to hear a bit of whispers overseas what was going on, and then it did eventually happen with the pandemic, and I didn't get my ticket. I was lucky. Those people that did buy tickets and also airfare tickets and hotels and all that, I feel sorry for them because they lost a lot of money. But I just heard rumours overseas what was going on, and I said, yeah, the writing's on the wall. Just hold on for a second, and yeah, I'll love it to see it come back. I reckon it'll be back next year in some capacity. But more importantly, with you guys are going from strength to strength, and I just appreciate what you've done. I mean, you put in a lot of, like you said, you put in a lot of hard work. And more importantly, what I saw now is that you guys have not only matured, but you also show a lot more gratification with among yourself during the hard times. You went through the hard times last year, you came through the other end, and now that you're like a shining light on your music, man, and you're showing that performing, even tomorrow night, of course, you're performing and you're just letting it just slide off the back of your shirt, man, and that's all you can do.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate that. I think, like I said, it was a struggle last year for everyone, but we just tried to stay as busy as possible. Just tried to keep rehearsing, just keep getting tighter, and just writing some more new stuff as well. Because rehearsing without a set list is kind of pointless after a little while. So like there was a point where we just said, yeah, let's just rehearse as much as we can. Let's like nail these tiny little bits that we're trying to get tighter. But when there's no shows on the horizon, it's hard to motivate yourself for that sometimes. So we just we've already started writing the next record. There's more new stuff, and that was a bit of a boost to the band as well. Just having something to creatively that we could like go in on. And yeah, man, like I said, it was tough, but I feel like we're almost out the other side now. We've got some shows on the horizon, so that's just the motivation levels have never been higher, and new records out, response has been great, so it's just been really good, man. The last couple of weeks have been great.
Yeah, and once again, I want to say thanks to Dicey for looking after you guys and also giving me the privilege to talk to you guys. And I can't wait for you guys to come to Adelaide. It'll be sometime in the near future. And more importantly, we just need to be patient because you guys will come here quicker than sooner. I reckon you will.
Right. Yeah.
But more importantly, man, how do people reach out to your band? How do they go? What websites you've got, and where can they go and look it up?
We're on all the usual suspects, man. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You can email us if you need to. We got a site as well, flamingwrekage.com. There's a shitload of merch up there. It's got all the info for the tour and all of that stuff. And there'll be more shows announced very soon for that too. So just keep an eye out, and we're happy to engage with any sort of like any messages we get. We love talking to the fans. It's always really good. We've gotten some really touching messages actually in the last since the album's come out. You know, people that said that it's gotten through some tough times last year. Like you know, people in Europe especially that are still in the shit a little bit. So that just makes what we do so worth it. And yeah, it's great, man. Feel free to reach out and have a chat whenever you like.
Yep. Well, I've got a couple more questions before I wrap it up. I want to talk about the single video that was released back in February. It was out in the woods. There was a day and night type of vision on it. I want to ask, how long did that took in place? And obviously, with the way that the restrictions were, you get that. But how long did that production in the woods?
So that was the Running Blind one you're talking about there. Yeah, so that one it was man, it was a bit of a shit show to be honest. Like like you said before, it's been pretty humid in Sydney, but like before the new year, it was like 20, 22 degrees every day in December. But the one day that we decided to shoot that clip, it was like 45 degrees, and we had all the lights and all the shit booked, so we just had to do it, and we just kept pushing the time back slightly to try and beat the heat, but we just had to, you know, bite the bullet and do it. And it was, yeah, we did it in the state forest down south, and we kind of had to cram a little bit. Like we wanted a lot more time at it, but it did come out looking great. I think like initially we wanted sort of a day into night, more gradual transition, and yeah, like the second scene, like the darker parts, that was like hilarious to film because we had these like we had to bring a generator with us, but we had these like white LED strip lights, and as soon as we turned that on, I've never seen so many bugs in my life. It was just like you wouldn't even believe it. It was unbelievable. So we're trying to deal with that, and yeah, so we only got like a couple of takes at it at that second location, and we just fucked around too much trying to get from A to B, and like, yeah. But having said all of that, it turned out really well. Like there was some really tight editing that we managed to get in there. So James O'Connor from the pit, he shot both of our video clips, and yeah, just did a great job. That one was probably one of the more challenging ones we've done. But to be honest, like music videos are never easy, man. If you're going to film something, you got to add like an extra 3 hours onto your estimated finish time. It always fucking takes forever.
See, not only am I a fan of music as well, I'm a bit of a historian type of person because I like to go back to places where bands done a photo shoot or did a video shoot or played at a gig. For you personally, being a fan and also being a member of a band, have you ever gone back to the places that you once been to, doing a photo shoot or playing live? Or secondly, have you been to places where your favourite artists or bands did a photo or video shoot or even played live? Have you ever been back to some of those magical places in your life?
Just like with shows, it's always cool to like come back to a venue that you haven't in a while, and then you're just like, you know, all the memories come flooding back of like a really sick show that you might have done there. But for the first video clip that we did, the Voiceless, that was I can't say where it was, but it was like this old bunker in Sydney, and that's a spot that I reckon I'll revisit in the future for sure. It's just such a cool, like, it's just this massive old military bunker, and like it's this huge tunnel underneath it and stuff. It's a really cool place to explore. So yeah, like I think that was a real personal like concept as well in that video. So just going back there, I reckon that'll be something that I'll definitely want to revisit in future. But yeah, man, it's really cool to like revisit that stuff. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, guys, there you have it. We've got Flaming playing tomorrow night at the Crowbar in Sydney. If you're in Sydney, you haven't got your tickets, get your tickets now at the door or on the website. So go and get that. Also, go and buy the merch at the merch section. I'm pretty sure David and the boys will be at the merch section having a yarn or two. And you never know, they might even sign up for you.
We got plenty of merch. The show's sold out though. There's no more tickets.
Yeah, Lord, tomorrow night's no tickets. What about the 26th of March? The 26th of March, that's still available for tickets?
The 20th of March, we're doing Newcastle. That's the next one after this one. Yeah, there's still tickets for that for sure. So yeah, if you miss out on the Sydney one, you can just jump in the van and get up to Newey, and that'll be sweet too.
Yeah. Well, like Molly Melbourne would say, be there or be square and do yourself a favour, support live music and get tickets where you can. David, thank you so much, man. And once again, I will give you a message once this gets all produced, and we'll send it to you so you can share it on your social media platforms for your band and for yourself, man.
No worries, man. Appreciate your time.
No worries. And thank you to Dicey once again. And fans that listen to the show, I always say, stay thirsty for metal. Catch you guys later.